Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
What's up, Las Vegas? So glad you could join us. Happy Hump Day. It is Wednesday. It is Vegas Take Time. Sharp and Shapiro, glad you could join us. Oh, boy, do we have a lot to get to today. Did you get a chance to watch the Democratic debate last night? If you didn't, oh, don't worry. I'll give you some of the highlights of it. It's funny. A lot of funny moments in the debate last night and some sad moments, too. The moderators just sucked. Gayle King was awful. We'll get to all that coming up here in a few minutes. This is going to be really interesting coming up here in hour number 2. It just so happens, and you know, not to sound like Rush Limbaugh and surprise all of you, but yes, Pete Buttigieg happens to be gay, if you didn't know that. I just wanted to inform all of my listeners. Pastor Ryan Glesman is Pete Buttigieg's brother-in-law, and he is flat out called Buttigieg a sinner. And he's going to be joining us in hour number 2. This is his brother-in-law. The guy is running for president of the United States, and his brother-in-law is making appearances on Fox News, calling out Pete Buttigieg for being gay and being a sinner. I can't wait to talk to this guy. He'll be coming up in hour number 2, Pastor Ryan Glesman. Crazy story coming out of Oklahoma. We're going to get to that coming up later on in the program. Oklahoma girls basketball team is speaking out after an announcer calls their names disgusting on the PA system. This is a wild and crazy story. We will get to that coming up in hour number 3. UNLV senior night tonight against Boise State, coming off of an enormous win, arguably one of the biggest wins they've had in the last decade when they beat San Diego State on the road. Senior night tonight, they're back at home playing against a pretty good basketball team in Boise State, so we'll get to that coming up in hour number 3. But I want to get right to the debate and everything that took place last night. It was a CBS debate, and if you were wondering who the moderators were, they were Norah O'Donnell and Gayle King. We will get to all that stuff coming up here in a few minutes, but for no surprise, right? No surprise to anybody. You know, Bernie Sanders is the front runner, and because he's the front runner, everybody is going after him on that stage. Everybody is attacking him. So here's kind of like a little bit of a montage of Bernie Sanders getting attacked on the debate stage last night. Here it is.
Vladimir Putin thinks that Donald Trump should be president of the United States, and that's why Russia is helping you get elected, so you'll lose to him.
Bernie and I agree on a lot of things, but I think I would make a better president than Bernie.
You think the last 4 years has been chaotic, divisive, toxic, exhausting? Imagine spending the better part of 2020 with Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump.
Bernie Sanders' analysis is right. The difference is I don't like his solutions.
Bernie voted 5 times against the Brady bill.
I'm hearing my name mentioned a little bit tonight. I wonder why.
Well, I think that the answer is pretty obvious. Again, Bernie Sanders is the front runner, so you're going to have all those candidates up there on the stage attacking him. Now, they have some legitimate reasons for attacking him, and I'll get back to that because there are plenty of them, including his comments about Fidel Castro, putting him in the Colin Kaepernick category of praising people that are evil, murderous dictators. So they certainly have a point there. I think some of the attacks were unfair. Some of them were legitimate. But there was a moment in the debate yesterday which I thought was a little bit ridiculous, a little bit funny, a little bit sad. So all the candidates were asked, what is the biggest misconception about you? And what is your motto? And I think because of this, you got a really good sense of who they are as far as their personality goes. What were they going to say? Were they going to say something really bad about a misconception? So I want to start with Tom Steyer. By the way, Tom Steyer is a guy that shouldn't even be up there on the stage. Listen, I respect the guy. He started with nothing. He's made billions of dollars. He's obviously an extremely intelligent guy. I think he cares about minorities. He's done a lot for minorities in his lifetime. He's very passionate about that. And there was a moment in the debate yesterday where Joe Biden went after Steyer for that, and I thought Biden was way out of line. Steyer is a passionate guy when it comes to helping African Americans and other minorities. And I think he's a good guy. I'm not going to go on here and say that he's not a good guy. But Steyer has no chance to win. He should not be on that stage. And the reason why I say that is because there's too many people trying to talk. And Steyer is taking time away. He's doing an injustice, I guess, or a disservice to the Democratic Party when you're on that stage and you know there's no chance that you win. The only reason why you're on that stage is ego. And I think Tom Steyer has a big ego. He shouldn't be on the stage. But I'm going to start with Steyer here. He was asked, what is your misconception and what is your motto? Here's what he had to say.
The biggest misconception about me is that somehow I'm defined by business success and money.
Okay, and your motto?
To tell the truth and do what's right no matter what.
Okay, so the motto makes a lot of sense, but what do you mean? How else are we going to define you? We don't know a lot about you. The only reason why you're on that stage is because of your business success. How is that a misconception? The guy is a billionaire. He's spent tons of money on ads. He doesn't have any political experience. How is that a misconception? Tom Steyer is an extremely successful businessman. And if you asked every single person, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Tom Steyer, you say billionaire. How is that a misconception? I don't understand it. With all due respect, Mr. Steyer, you're wrong. That's not a misconception. You're a billionaire. You're a very successful businessman. Embrace it, for Christ's sake. Not a misconception. So then Amy Klobuchar was asked that same question. Here's what she had to say.
The biggest misconception is that I'm boring, because I'm not. Then I would say that my motto, that politics is about improving people's lives.
All right, again, that's a nice motto. Politics about improving people's lives. I would tend to disagree with you because politics today doesn't appear to be about, helping people. It appears about your own career. I don't know a lot about Amy Klobuchar, but I can tell you something right now. I'm not sure if that's a misconception. She doesn't strike me as Miss Personality. She does strike me as quite boring. Again, that's something that I would say it's not a misconception. It's probably right, Amy. You don't. And by the way, what is up with her shaking? I'm not making fun of any health diseases that she has. Why is it that every single time she talks, her head shakes? It's just weird. It's off-putting. I find her quite a bit annoying. I would never vote for her. And yes, I do find her boring. So I don't think that's a misconception, Amy, with all due respect. Then Joe Biden asked that same question. Here's his response.
And my mother's motto was, she said, you're defined by your courage, you're redeemed by your loyalty.
What's the biggest misconception about you, sir?
I have more hair than I think I do.
All right, that's kind of funny. By the way, for the record, I'm bald. So me and Joe Biden do not have that in common at all. But listen, I think that's kind of cool when you talk a little bit about your motto and you talk about your mom. Hey, my mom said this. Because I think Joe Biden did a pretty good job yesterday. I thought he was stern. I thought he was getting agitated at times at the moderators because they were interrupting him and they were not giving him fair time. He had a right to be. I thought Joe Biden had a really good debate yesterday. And I like that misconception because it was funny. There's nothing funny about Amy Klobuchar saying, the biggest misconception about me is I'm boring because I'm really not boring. Oh, really, Amy? What's the most exciting thing you've ever done in your life besides being a senator? What's a night on the town with Amy Klobuchar? I'd love to hear that. I'm sure she just, sucks back that alcohol and she's just the life of the party. I mean, give me a break, Amy. Come on. But I liked Joe Biden's answer there. I really did. I thought it was a nice quote from his mom, and then making a little half-hearted joke about his hair, making fun of himself a little bit. I thought that was funny. And then it was time to ask that same question to Bernie Sanders.
Misconception.
Yes.
Misconception, and you're hearing it here tonight, is that the ideas I'm talking about are radical. They're not. We can create a nation
All right, Senator.
where all people have a good
Senator
standard of
Warren,
living.
Okay. First of all, when you say Bernie Sanders, he's not a dumb guy. He has to understand. When you say free college for all, that is the definition of radical. It's never going to happen. When you say $15 an hour minimum wage for all, it's not going to happen. When you say how are you going to pay for your Medicare for all? If you're making over $29,000 a year, we're going to tax you over 50%. It's not going to happen. That is radical. Is there anybody out there that thinks some of Bernie Sanders' opinions are not radical? Of course they're radical. So what do we have here, ladies and gentlemen? I'm counting so far. 3 out of 4 people saying that are misconceptions. They're not misconceptions. They're truthful. They're honest. Tom Steyer is a successful businessman. Amy Klobuchar is boring. And Bernie Sanders is radical. At least some of his opinions are radical. Why would anybody disagree with that? Now let's go to Elizabeth Warren. And I'll tell this about Elizabeth Warren real quickly. I think she's done very well in these debates. I do have more of a respect for her. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think if she faced Donald Trump, she would have a chance. I have a lot more respect for her, and I think she's done a much better job in these debates than Amy Klobuchar has. I respect her for going after Mike Bloomberg, for being aggressive, and I think to myself, if she's on that stage with Donald Trump, she is going to give it to him. So I do have a newfound respect for Elizabeth Warren. I think she's done a very good job, and she would be probably my second or third pick up there on that stage. So Elizabeth Warren was asked that same question, and here is what her response was.
Look, I never was supposed to be on a stage like this. And the misconception is that I thought I should be president of the United States. No, I got into this because I am a fighter. My motto ties in directly to this. It's Matthew 25. And that is, inasmuch as ye hath done it unto one of these, the least of thy brethren, ye hath done it unto me.
All right, that's a little weird. I don't need to hear a passage from you, Elizabeth. I got to be honest with you. That was a little strange. But with that being said, I do agree with her. Of course she's a fighter. You can't just get up there on the stage without being a billionaire, without being a fighter, without having some guts and determination. And I have a lot of respect for her for being up there and continuing the fight. I don't think she's going to win the nomination, but I think her future in politics continues to be bright. And by the way, it's not out of the realm of possibility that someone could choose her as the vice president. Very much so. I could see Joe Biden doing that. It's not going to be Bloomberg. I could see possibly Bernie Sanders doing that. So she has a bright future in politics. The passage was a little weird there. And then we go to, who would be my number one pick. That is Pete Buttigieg. Here's what he had to say.
I think the biggest misconception is that I'm not passionate. I get that I'm kind of level. Some say unflappable. I don't think you want a president who's flappable. I seek to live by the teachings that say that if you would be a leader, you must first be a servant. And, of course, the teaching, not unique to the Christian tradition, but a big part of it, that holds that we are to treat others as we would be treated.
By the way, just for the record, I will say that Donald Trump is very flappable, at least his arms and his belly. So I'll definitely say that. So Pete's right about that. But that was a good answer. That was a good answer. I think a lot of people do see Pete Buttigieg as this even-keeled guy. But what is wrong with that? What is wrong with being even-keel? What is wrong with being calm in your demeanor? If you're going to want to become the president of the United States, don't you have to have those qualities? Isn't that important? I don't think that's a negative. I actually think that's a positive. And then the final person that was asked this question is Mike Bloomberg. Here's what he had to say.
Misconception that I'm 6 feet tall. And, quote, I've trained for this job for a long time, and when I get it, I'm going to do something rather than just talk about it.
All right, first of all, no one on the planet Earth thinks that you are 6 feet tall, Mr. Bloomberg, and Donald Trump has made that very clear and very evident. That is not a misconception. That is a fact. Here's what I would have said if I was Bloomberg. The misconception is that I'm a racist. And then I would have said, I am the opposite of a racist, and here's why. I just don't think Mike Bloomberg is very good on the debate stage. That was a stupid thing to say. Really, is there anybody out there on the planet that thinks Mike Bloomberg is my height, 6 feet? That's insane. And then, saying that he's been training for this job, I'm not so sure being the mayor of New York City is training to be the president of the United States. It doesn't hurt. But I don't think you have to be a mayor to be the president. I don't think there's really any training unless you're the vice president. I will say that. The fact that Joe Biden was the vice president of the United States for 8 years, certainly you could make the case that that's training to be the president. I think Joe Biden has that argument. I'm not so sure Bloomberg does. We'll take your phone call. I'll take a few phone calls on this. What did you think about those misconceptions, those mottos? I think many of them were not misconceptions. Tom Steyer is a successful businessman. I believe Amy Klobuchar is somewhat boring. I think Bernie Sanders at times does have some radical opinions. Those aren't misconceptions. Those are facts. If you disagree with me, you can let me know. 702-257-5396 is the number to call again if you want to be a part of this conversation. Your thoughts on the Democratic debate last night, the misconceptions and the mottos of these candidates. I want to hear your thoughts on that, and then we'll get into the Bernie Sanders stuff. 257-5396, the number to call. Why don't we start off with Paul? Paul, you are first up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, guys. How's it going? You know,
Good.
my thing about Elizabeth Warren is all I know about her is she's keeps good track of what other people do wrong, and that she's slightly right of Bernie Sanders. Nothing about her impresses me. She's just, to me, the most divisive of them all, because I honestly couldn't tell you what her policies are, except I know she's talked about writing some sort of a bill for health care and stuff like that, but there's been no elaboration on it. But I know that she seems to keep the best tabs on the other people, you know, so she can rip into them.
Right.
And as far as Bernie Sanders goes, if the misconception would be that all these people that follow him think that they're going to get a free education, if he had his way, they would. But you know what? If you became a doctor and we have socialized medicine,
Yeah.
you're going to be making less money than the police make today, because you're going to become a public servant.
Well, then I think you made a good point. Let me just start with Elizabeth Warren. And by the way, I appreciate the call. Thank you for calling in, Paul. Let me start with Elizabeth Warren. You're right. There's a lot of people, including myself, that do not know her policies. They don't know a lot of her policies, what exactly she stands for. We know that she is a former special education teacher. We know that. We know she's certainly pro-teacher. We know she's not as far to the left as Bernie Sanders. You're right. We do know that. But you're 100% right. She doesn't talk a lot about her own policies. She goes on the attack. You know, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I certainly enjoyed it when she went after Mike Bloomberg. I thought that was very enjoyable, because if someone makes horrific comments, whether that be in or the workplace or outside the workplace, and they want to be the president of the United States, they're going to be exposed for that. So while I agree with you, I think she's, you know, probably not spoken enough about her own policies. She certainly has been on the offensive, and she's been the aggressor, and I do think that is a positive thing. Let me just take another phone call here. Let's go to David. David, you are next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
So my question to you is, how long, if Biden wins the presidency, will it take for the Senate to move for a psychiatric examination to see if he has dementia?
You think Joe Biden has dementia?
Oh, I don't think Joe Biden has dementia. I'm about 99% sure that Joe Biden has dementia. The only thing he's missing is a degree.
Why do you think? Well,
how desperate? Here's what I can't get out. Your opinion is, how desperate do you have to be to want to pick a guy for the Oval Office who borders on not knowing what state he's in, not knowing what day it is, not knowing any of the facts, not knowing anything coherent, not being able to put through a sentence, but you'd rather have him in the Oval Office than Trump?
Okay, so hold on. There's a lot to get to with that statement. First of all, you know, maybe he had made a gaffe, and first of all, where have I ever said I would vote for Joe Biden? Let me just start there.
That was just my inference.
Okay, well, you can make all the inferences you want, but unless I tell you or say on the air I'm going to vote for Joe Biden, you shouldn't make an assumption, because we all know what people, you know, when people make assumptions. I've never said that I've supported Joe Biden. I've openly criticized Joe Biden, but guess what? I have a lot more respect for Joe Biden than I do Donald Trump. You know why? Because Joe Biden has served this country for a very, very long time. He has been through.
Oh, that's you mean he served his own wallet?
Excuse me.
Joe Biden.
So let me ask you a question then. All right. So let me ask you a question then. You don't think Donald? Okay, hold on. So let me ask you a question then. You don't think Donald Trump has served his own wallet his whole life? How about Donald Trump and his mental capacity? How about that? You don't have. How about Donald Trump and his impulsiveness on Twitter? Do you have a problem with that? Are you openly talking about Donald Trump and his issues, or are you just going to talk about Joe Biden?
I have a problem with. Here's what
I asked you. No. I asked you. No. First of all,
open borders,
excuse me.
And then come on and tell us about the virus.
All right. First of all, let me let me correct you again. Let me correct. Okay. Okay. Would you like to stay on the line, or do you want to just call me names? What would it be, sir? Exactly. You're off the line because you're a coward. Okay. First of all, I've never said I wanted open borders, and I'm not a Democrat. You are a moron. All you do is make assumptions. And folks, do you see what happens here with these idiots on the right? Some of these morons. You actually criticize Donald Trump for the same stuff that he criticized Joe Biden for. And what does he do? He just insults me and he calls me a Democrat because he's a moron with a low IQ who can't have a debate with somebody. I was willing to have a conversation with him. Some of these Donald Trump supporters, he talks about Joe Biden and his whole career. All he cared about is his own wallet, and he's got dementia. The second I asked him a few questions about Donald Trump, he doesn't address the issue. He calls me a Democrat or a liberal. He makes generalizations, and then he hangs up the phone because he is a coward. You just expose yourself for being a coward, sir, because that's exactly what you are. You're going to tell me that Joe Biden his whole life has only cared about his own interest, and you're not going to mention one thing about Donald Trump? Heck, just last week, Donald Trump was staying at his own hotel. His family profited off of that. Just last week in Las Vegas. Just last week, he decided to fly home. We talked about it yesterday. Several rallies across the country. Instead of staying in that city, he decided to fly back to the Trump Hotel. But this idiot who just calls in, all he wants to complain about is Joe Biden, how his health, because I guess he's a doctor, right? I guess he's a doctor. He said 99% that guy has dementia. Well, let me tell you something, sir. 99% you didn't even get your GED because you're a dummy. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into this Bernie Sanders conversation. Bernie Sanders praising Fidel Castro. We have the audio for you. And Democrats going after him on that stage. Is it right? Is it wrong? We'll get to that and my open criticism in regards to the moderators of the debate. That and much more coming back. You're listening to The Vegas Take. All right, welcome back. It is The Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. By the way, also broadcasting live on YouTube. Check out the YouTube page. All you got to do is type in The Vegas Take. We are streaming live with multiple cameras, and you can see my beautiful mug and my beautiful face because I know that's what all of you want to see. Really, I know it. I know it. Also, a reminder, we have Pete Buttigieg, brother-in-law, coming up on the program at the top of the hour. His name is Pastor Ryan Glesman, and he says that Pete Buttigieg is a sinner. Probably shouldn't come to a shocker to many since he's a pastor, but this is interesting. Why is he going public with his opinions? Why is he hurting Pete Buttigieg? We'll ask him that coming up in hour number 2. I mentioned the moderators and how they were just atrocious last night. And if you're wondering who they were, Gayle King. Remember Gayle King? Look, Gayle King's been around a long time. She's obviously good at what she does. She was not good last night. She got, in that big controversy about asking Lisa Leslie a question about Kobe Bryant's rape allegations 17 years ago. The other moderator was Norah O'Donnell. Now, here's an example of what I'm talking about. I want you to listen to this. Norah O'Donnell totally screws up at the end of the debate. Now, I get it. This stuff happens, but it shouldn't happen in a debate when you have professionals. Have a listen to this.
Well, thank you. That concludes our debate.
No, we have time for one more break, Nora, one more break. Time flies when you're having fun. You're watching the Democratic debate right here on CBS.
Yeah, because it really seemed like the moderators were having a lot of fun. Time definitely flies. You can't make mistakes like that, but it wasn't just that mistake. If that was the only mistake they made, you'd say, so what? No big deal. They just completely lost control. Josh Jordan, many dignitaries on Twitter that cover politics says these moderators might be the weakest moderators I've seen in a debate. They have absolutely no control over who's speaking, and they are forcing candidates to steamroll them if they want any speaking time. And there were some others, like Mika Brzezinski from, obviously, NBC. She says, does CBS have a buzzer or something to organize this? What is going on? And even Andrew Yang, former presidential candidate, weighing on this. He went on Twitter. He said the moderators are having trouble controlling the debate. Yeah, no crap. Nicholas Fondcaro said, absolute train wreck of the Dem debate. They don't even know when it's supposed to end. Terrible job by Norah O'Donnell and Gayle King. Josh Krauser said, so awkward. O'Donnell ends debate, but there apparently one more segment going. I mean, Twitter was just hammering these two. The bottom line is there's a reason why in these past several debates, these Democratic debates, the moderators weren't being hammered because they did a pretty good job. If you're good at what you do, you shouldn't have a situation like that where you lose control. Here's what I think should happen. If you ask me, I think that they should just turn off the mics. The only person that is called to turn their mic on. There should be a potting up, potting down, kind of like what we do with some idiotic callers. And I say, pot him down, pot him down. They should have done the same thing in the debate. Be able to pod up and pod down the microphones when they are called to. That way, nobody can hear them interrupt except for maybe those people that are on the stage. That's how I think they should handle these debates because It was so unorganized. It was so chaotic. How much time did you hear 2 or 3 people talking over each other last night? It's annoying.